Hi. Today we're going to be studying Perek Samach, chapter 60 in Sefer Tehillim. The first thing that struck me about this Perek is the number of the Perek Samach, the letter itself, Samach, lismoach, to rely. As we are learning this in memory of Sarah, it was especially meaningful for me to prepare this chapter, as I could always rely on Sarah for a warm greeting, a big smile, a great book recommendation, always to be followed by an erudite discussion. This Tehillah, this Perek, is a national lament. We see this from the plural form of the verbs being used, zanachtanu, paratztanu, and even when it switches to the singular, like when it says va'aneni, we know it is the leader, David, speaking on behalf of the nation. The setting here is a war not going well. Let's begin with Pasuk Aleph. Lamanatzeach al Shushan edut michtam leDavid lelamed. David is writing this to be accompanied by an instrument, a Shushan edut, and it's michtam leDavid lelamed. This psalm is being written lelamed as a teaching device. The musicians are to be taught this so they could sing about the kindness that Hashem bestows upon us. We had been weakened in a battle initially, even though we ultimately are victorious. So to teach that everything comes about through Hashem. The battle being referred to here in this Perek coincides with Shmuel Bet, Perek Chet, and also in Divrei Hayamim, Perek Yud Chet. Here in Pasuk Bet, we read that Vayashav Yoav vayach et Adam begei melech shneim asar aleph. We read that Yoav, David's nephew and general, killed 12,000 people in Edom. In Shmuel Bet and in Divrei Hayamim, we see that 18,000 Edomites were killed, and the general was Yoav's brother Avishai. Based on these two differences, the number of casualties and the generals, the modern commentators explain that David and Avishai conquered Edom as described in Shmuel and Divrei Hayamim. Then David set up a garrison. When David's army leaves to battle elsewhere, the Edomites destroy the garrison, probably killing many people. Then David has to dispatch Yoav to return. Our pasuk says, Vayashav Yoav, to put down the rebellion, killing another 12,000 people. The battle didn't start off well, the casualties, when the Edomites destroyed the garrison, and that's what gave birth to this Tehillah. This Tehillah can be used for any war. What was troubling to David about this war not going well is that initially it was sanctioned by Hashem. David says to Hashem in Pasuk Gimel that you have forsaken us, you were angry with us. Zanachtanu, paratztanu, anafta, teshovev lanu. In Pasuk Hey, David says, Hir'eta amcha kasha, you've shown us harshness. In Pasuk Zayin, which is a pasuk that we say in our Shemona Esrei 3 times a day, David says, L'man yecheltzun yedidacha hoshia yemincha va'aneni. In order for your beloved to be saved, referring to Bnei Yisrael in this war, rescue me, the king. And we see in Pasuk Chet that the war was indeed sanctioned from Hashem, because it says Elokim diber b'kadsho, that Hashem spoke from the Kodesh. You know, we know back in those days when there was a Kohen Gadol and he wore the Urim V'Tumim, they would go to the Kohen Gadol for advice before they went to war. So the Urim V'Tumim obviously told David it would be okay, and David relied on that. Hashem continues to respond in Pasuk Tet that Menashe, Ephraim, and Yehuda will be a unified front when he goes to war. Li Gilad, Li Menashe, Ephraim, Ma'oz Roshi, Yehuda, Machokaki. These three tribes, Shvatim, are mentioned because they cover the whole lands, Menashe on the west bank of the Jordan, Ephraim in the north, and Yehuda in the south. In Pasuk Yud, Moav, Sirachsi, El Adom Ashlich Na'ali Alai, Peleshet Hitarurai. the three nations mentioned, Moab, Edom, and the Plishtim, because they were a triumvirate. Geographically, they lived in the same area, and they would affect the fighting against Edom. And what's cute in this pasuk, why I bring it out, is because it says, El Edom ashlichna ali alai, that we're going to throw a shoe at them. It's how it's symbolic now as it was then, that the throwing of a shoe shows authority and possession. The last three psukim show that nothing impacts David's belief in Hashem. And David understands that there is no one else to turn to for help. God is the only solution for his problems. In Pasuk Yud Gimel, David says, Hashem brings us help versus the enemy, because if you look for help for man, it's futile. He says, Ezrat mitzar v'shav teshuat adam. And in Pasuk Yud Daled, the final Pasuk, it says, it is through Hashem we will be victorious, and Hashem will trample our enemies. And this is why this Perek in Tehillim, David says, is lilamed, is a teaching device to be used always, because even when things aren't going bad, we have to keep our emunah in Hashem, and we have to realize that He is the only one that we can turn to. Thank you so much.